Welcome to our BUZZtravel live event. As you already know, we are far more than just a social network for travel professionals with interline rates, fam trips, and a marketplace. With our live events, we aim to provide you with interesting information for your business, and I believe that's much needed in these times. So today, we are talking to Howard Salinger, the Managing Director of Travel Connection Group. Today's topic: how Travel Connection Group found success with online events during the COVID-19 lockdown. So a success story. We are looking forward to knowing more about it. Welcome, Howard. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Marcus. Nice to be here.
Great. Howard, maybe you would like to introduce yourself a bit to all our attendees. And then we are looking forward to knowing more.
Okay. Well, my name is Howard Salinger. I'm from Travel Connection Group, as you mentioned before. Travel Connection Group is a company that I set up 3 years ago. I've been working in travel for 17 years, mostly connecting travel companies with travel media, focusing specifically on the UK, but also connecting people around the world. Travel Connection Group was set up so that people could come through me, use my contacts to help promote their business. So we've run events for people, we've helped find sponsors for certain events, we've run events, we've done PR for smaller companies. It's basically just people come to us and say, you know people, can you help us? And we generally do. When the COVID-19 lockdown happened, we acted very quickly and threw an event out there, which we titled Social with Media. And the idea was to have an event quite similar to this, really, where we would get some top journalists to come onto the call and give an update on how the coronavirus has affected their publication, what their thoughts are about everything, how they think the future of travel will pan out, and things like that. We started it just over a month ago. The first event, I got 5 top journalists: travel editor of The Sun, The Telegraph, the iPaper, the editor of National Geographic Traveller, plus a journalist who was regularly on TV at the time giving an update on how the travel industry was being affected.
Wow.
And the response was huge. We had 100 people that we could get onto the call, and we had 58 people on a waiting list. So we then threw the event together again 3 days later with 4 different journalists. Off the top of my head, can't remember who they are, but they were top journalists again. And then we thought, well, you know, we've got 180 people had come to the 2 events literally at the start of the lockdown here in the UK. And we thought, you know, if that's something that people want, we're going to have to do this on a regular basis. And we're now 2 days away from doing our 7th event in just over a month, with still over 100 people coming every time. So we obviously kind of touched a nerve with it, and people are finding that they really want it. But the best thing about it is that we don't just see people from the UK. Even though the journalists are UK journalists, and we are working on getting more in. And in fact, at next week's event, I've got an Irish journalist joining us, and I've been contacted by journalists in the USA as well.
Wow.
But it's not just people from the UK. I've had people from 16 different countries who have attended the 7 events that have taken place. So whether it's just something that came across at the right time, or whether it's been well managed, you know, I don't really know. But it's, you know, we will continue to manage the events as long as people want them. And while there's over 100 people that want to come, and there's people from all over the world who want to join in, then we'll carry on, basically.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds absolutely great. I think it's exactly the right time, and I'm sure you organized it quite well. So otherwise, it wouldn't be a success. So well done. So let's get to the live those online events. What do you think? Why are these online events so effective for people right now in this situation?
I think it's really just because people want to stay connected at the moment. A lot of people have been furloughed. I mean, I can now see some of the people who are in the room, and at least 2 people here I know have been furloughed, and they just want to be kept in touch with what's going on out there. And also, you know, the quality of the journalists that I'm getting on these calls they're absolutely top travel editor of national newspapers, editors of top travel magazines, and the journalists themselves, they also want to get involved in it because they want to keep connected with the community. They want people, they in some cases, some of these publications are still trying to find travel to write about, and there just isn't that much information coming their way. So jumping on a call with 100 people who could potentially help them fill their pages that weekend or the next month's publication is very, very useful for them. And it helps that I know these people, and I can bring them in, and the style of it is right too. I mean, we do it exactly the same as this. It's really just sitting, having a conversation, having a chat. People throw in some questions, and we do our best to answer them, because at the moment people just want to know what to do. It's a very difficult situation for everyone, and if we can provide opportunities for them to get the answers to the questions they're asking, and there are some very good questions that come in. I mean, there's the obvious ones like, when do we think travel will reopen again? How are we going to travel? What's the future of travel going to be? But every so often you get thrown a very interesting question. Like last week, we had someone who represents Thailand, Tourism Thailand, and they said, is travel insurance going to have a massive impact on how people travel and how destinations receive people? And I hadn't thought of that, to be honest. And and I bumped it right to the top of the list of the questions I was going to ask, because I thought, it's nice to have something that's a bit different to, what's the future going to be like? Because we've sat and done 6 of these events so far, and another one in 2 days. But most of the time, the questions are: do we think the UK will open up first? Do we think we'll be able to go into Europe? What about going to Australia and New Zealand? And I think we pretty much all know what the answers to those are.
Exactly.
But we've had some brilliant discussions, and in fact, last week, the event that we had last week, we had 4 very good journalists on the panel, and they literally just sat here and chatted amongst themselves for an hour. I really had not much to do, except every so often saying, look, there are some questions we need to answer here, so can we get on to them?
Exactly.
But that's what we wanted. It's called a social. It's not a seminar. I don't want people to come and give their opinion. Well, I want them to give their opinion, but I don't want them to be experts. I'm not looking for experts. I just want people to feel like they can drop everything for an hour and come into an online space where they can just watch people having a conversation and hopefully get something from it. And that's the idea. It is literally a social with media. And if I could work out a way of making it into a networking event where people go off into separate rooms and have conversations amongst themselves, I'd add that in too. But I haven't worked that part out yet.
Yeah. Of course. Well, it's a huge thing. I'm just happy you started with that, because this is a really, really interesting thing. And that you mentioned the questions. We will have our Q&A session afterwards. Just for everybody who's watching here and wants to participate, you have the possibility to ask your questions, whether in the Q&A section, or you can raise your hand. You will find that button down there in the menu as well, if you would like to talk directly. Yeah, this is just for you to know. And I would come to the next question now. You have been talking about journalists, yeah? Are journalists at the moment interested in hearing from the travel brands or destinations during this COVID-19 crisis?
Absolutely. I mean, there are some publications that have had to, we'll call it, furlough their travel pages. So there are, publications that aren't travel specific, like OK Magazine, Hello, New Magazine. Most of the women's publications have temporarily stopped putting travel in their publications, just simply because they're using the space for other things. Other publications like national newspapers, there are some of them that have dropped the travel supplement, and travel is now in the main part of the paper because there just isn't enough to talk about. The biggest problem all over the place, and this has nothing to do with editorial, but it does affect each publication, is that the advertising has stopped. People have basically pulled out of all advertising, which, I mean, I can't comment on that because I don't know what people's budgets are like, but obviously that advertising keeps those publications having the opportunity to give the pages for the editorial, so if the advertising is gone, the editorial space then gets smaller. However, each one of them still has an editorial space, and some of them haven't cut back at all. And they still need as much news as they can possibly get. Now, honestly, on the flip side, it's very difficult because most of the companies that we're talking about here who could give them some news either don't have any news, or the staff have been furloughed and they can't get the news to them. So it's difficult on both sides, because the people who are normally doing the PR and are throwing in all the great news stories aren't there, and the publications who need those news stories, they need them, but they can't get them. So, I mean, if I give an example of The Sun, the travel editor of The Sun, she's spending more time now chasing people to get some kind of news so that she can fill her pages. And she's been on my call twice. I've also done one that's specifically for freelance journalists too, so that they can get an idea of how they can pitch into these publications, because there is opportunities for them there as well. And yeah, I mean, it's these events are proving useful for them as well, because they're literally sitting there going, please send me things, send me, I need, you know.
Yeah.
But of course, they're restricted on what they can talk about. There are certain destinations. I mean, we, you know, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, a question came up saying, I've got clients in Spain and Italy. Can we talk about Spain and Italy yet? And the general overwhelming response to that at that time was no. So, you know, there are certain destinations it's going to be quite difficult to talk about. And also you have to write everything on the basis of when you can go there, this is what you're going to get. So everything has to be done on the basis of, you know, dreaming of a nice trip or something like that. And there are certain destinations at the moment that are really focusing on that. I know the Caribbean, for example, are doing a massive Caribbean dreaming campaign through social media, and it's all about, you know, dreaming of going back to the Caribbean or going there for the first time or something like that. And just basically just, you know, I mean, the reality is that people are stuck at home. Wherever they are in the world, they're stuck at home. And most of them are spending all day on the internet. So one of the things they're probably doing is researching holidays, because that's what they really want. And in reality, as soon as you can, you know, I mean, there are people here from all over the world. You're in one of the Canary Islands. Which one is it?
Exactly, Gran Canaria.
Yeah. So when the doors reopen, everybody will want to go somewhere. You know, and I'm, you know, we're here in the UK, and we know full well that in the UK, people are suddenly going to flood down to Cornwall or Norfolk or somewhere else, and there'll be over tourism again. And quite frankly, at the moment, over tourism is something that we'll just cope with, because everything is under tourism. But we know full well the UK will open up first. It'll be difficult for people to fly again for a while. And we're going to have to adapt. And so in terms of writing and editorial, the writing has to be about, you know, these places are still there, but we don't know yet how we're going to get there. You know, nothing's changed. It's just that we can't get there anymore.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean,
so the writing has to be like that. It's difficult, very difficult.
Yeah, I've seen these campaigns like "Dream Now, Travel Later." I think that's a great thing, because it really gets people like, okay, I'm really dreaming about going there. I want to go there, even though I can't now.
Yeah, and you know, and there are some clever ways of doing it. I mean, I saw a brilliant campaign, virtual campaign by the Faroe Islands, of all places, the Faroe Islands, and it was done by this one of the marketing people who's a guide, and he's just really big in the Faroe Islands. He used to play football for them and all things like that.
Okay.
And what he did was he came up with this idea of the viewer has a control, like an Xbox control. And using this control, they moved him around the island.
Exactly.
And he actually listened to where they wanted to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, of course, you know, and the Guardian picked it up and said, "Oh, yeah, what a great story." And I've met people since who are doing these virtual tours, because, you know, most of the cities are quiet, they're dead. So for somebody to be a guide in those cities, they can be social distancing and still working and do all the rules that exist. But they can take people on a journey, and that's great. And there are some people doing some brilliant things. I mean, at the moment, I'm in talks with someone who's a celebrity barman on TV. And we're looking at doing a series of events showcasing destinations based on the drinks that you can have there. So, for example,
that's interesting.
If there's a hotel that's associated with a particular drink, then he will make that drink during the Zoom call, and with the destination would then promote themselves, and he would promote them and stuff like that. So that's something that we're working on at the moment with a celebrity who I can't name, unfortunately, because
of course,
I'm restricted on what I'm allowed to talk about. But there's loads of this stuff going on, and it's all about letting people know. I mean, the one thing we do know worldwide is that there are certain companies that are going to struggle to come back in the same way that they did before. We know that, and they will have to adapt, and they will have to find new ways of doing things, and hopefully nobody goes out of business, because I just don't want to see anyone go out of business. But people are going to have to adapt. Air travel particularly is going to have to adapt, and we don't know yet how it's going to be. But the one thing we do know is that all destinations will still be there. They're not going anywhere.
Quite obvious.
And so for anybody who's representing a destination, whether that's an international destination, a region of a country, a city, you've still got something to promote. It's not going anywhere. You just don't know how the people are going to get there. And the other thing is, we don't know when, I mean, I'm talking about leaving the UK here. We may want to go to Spain and Germany and Thailand or wherever it is we go, but those countries may not want us. We have to think about how we are going to interact as a global travel industry of people, whatever. And it's everything will change, but we'll see.
In the end, it's always the questions that can't be answered. Like Jean-Marc, one of our ambassadors, said in one of our live events, if I had the answer, I would write a book and be very, very rich.
Yeah, well, so, Jean-Marc is probably closer to the answer than I am, to be honest.
Yeah, but still, I think nobody knows exactly. We've been discussing in our live events about what's going on. Will there mass tourism be again, or will it be more the sustainable tourism?
It will all happen
what
again.
will the people want? So I think it's just time to wait and be prepared in the end.
We do have to wait a bit, but of course, we've still got businesses to run, and everybody needs to get back to where they were before, and there are some people it's going to take longer than others.
Exactly.
And destinations are going to find it much easier to bounce back than airlines, cruise companies. But I sincerely hope that everybody does, of course, because something like this, it's all about rallying and collaborating and helping each other to get back to what we had before.
Exactly. We are keeping our fingers crossed for really everybody, and try to support as much as we can, like with the talk with you, for example. I think this is whatever can be brought inside our community, inside the travel industry, is so much worth. It's we need to support each other.
But the really good thing that's come out of all of this is that running events online has really taken off, and that's people are talking about how the travel industry will adapt, but the events industry is going to take a massive hit off the back of this, because people have suddenly realized that running an event online is A, really easy, B, you can get your audience to come along very easily, and the third thing is it costs practically nothing. You still get your message across without having to hire a venue, sort out all the drinks, make sure people are there, make sure people know where they're going, follow up with them all. I mean, I've run hundreds of events in 15 years. I've run hundreds of them, and in the last month, I can't believe how easy it is to do an event online. And actually, I've had some destinations come to me, like the German tourist board, for example. They've suddenly gone, how much will it cost us to run an event? And it's really just they're paying for my time to manage it. That's it. They don't have to hire a venue. They don't have to do it. So the cost of running an event in real time, well, you can't take away the human interaction and having a chat and all that stuff, which is invaluable. But in terms of costs of running an event, it's like 1/10 of the cost, and you still get your message across. And you must be finding that yourselves, I'm sure.
Of course. Of course.
And you can have a conversation with people and they say, can you help me promote my destination or my company or whatever it is? But I mean, at the moment, it's really only destinations that I'm in talks with. And they literally can't believe that they can have pretty much the same event in terms of getting their message across without really spending much money. And, it's amazing how quickly online events have taken off. And you do kind of wonder, when we get to some form of normality, whether people will want to have events like they did before. I hope they do, of course, because I love organizing them. But, in terms of saving a bit of money and still being able to get some brand exposure and talk to people,
that's a great thing.
It has the same value, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And Howard, now that we're talking about these events, what do you think? What type of events, like these online events, should people be considering?
Well, there are lots of different types of events. You've got to think about what message you want to get across and who your audience is that you want to talk to. So in my environment, I've got different ones from different people. So if I come back to the celebrity barman, he really wants consumers. So he wants it to go to the public. So we probably have to do what you're doing here with linking it to Facebook Live, I'm sure. And maybe, I don't know if there's an Instagram Live version. I don't know, because I don't really deal with Instagram. But he will want the event to be streamed live to his followers, so that people will then, which of course is great for the destination, of course, because then the destination is showcasing directly to the customer through this celebrity. So they're getting their brand out there and showcasing their destination off the back of this guy who's really clever and really popular, to a vast audience. Alternatively, you've got people like, I'd say, the German Tourist Board. The German Tourist Board, they may want to do the consumer angle too, but most people at the moment just want to put an event on and get some journalists in the room and almost do like a press conference, press briefing, maybe show a video, in exactly the same way as they would in a normal circumstances. They just literally just want to get some journalists in the room and say, right, this is what we want to talk to you about with Germany. And the Germans are very good at saying, right, this specific subject, and it would be something that you weren't really expecting it to be. And you know that, because that's what the Germans are like. But they, I remember having a conversation with them a few years ago and saying, let's do something that promotes the Football World Cup. And they went, what do we want to do that for? We want to talk about what they can do after the World Cup. And I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that? But that's how they think. So they would want to then put on an event that says, we want to get some journalists in the room, say 15, 20 journalists. It really doesn't matter, as long as people come along, listen to the message, half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is. And the beauty of it is that that journalist literally just has to stop what they're doing for half an hour, click on a link, go into that thing, listen to what's going on, write some notes, know that they can contact that person afterwards, and go straight back to work again. It's not like leaving your office, getting on a train, going to the venue, picking up a drink, having chats with people. That half an hour is 2-3 hours. So, if you're putting on an event and you want some journalists to come along and listen to your message, and there's something specific you want to promote, these Zoom calls are absolutely brilliant for that kind of thing. At the moment it is. I'm not saying for the foreseeable future that that's the right thing to do, because if it had been the right thing to do, we would have been doing it months ago. So I'm not saying that it is the future, but I think that a lot of people would suddenly start to think, it's a lot easier, a lot cheaper. Maybe that's what we should do in the future. I don't know. Yeah, in the same way, I don't know how air travel is going to happen again.
Of course not.
Yeah,
of course not. Well, I think in the end, it's yes, of course. It's a great thing to do, and as you said, we would have done it earlier. But sometimes people need to be forced to try new things. And
possibly. I have to be honest. When back on we did the first one on the 23rd of March. I didn't have a clue how to set it up. I remember sitting down the Friday before. My colleague had said to me, why don't we think about doing an event? And I thought, well, how? What are we going to do? And he quickly got some research on Zoom and WebEx and all these things, and came back and said, right, these are the options. I'd already lined up some people to be on the call, so I'd done that, but I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to book people in. I didn't know how to set up the call. I didn't know how to run it. I didn't know anything, because I'd never done it. I mean, I'd had a Zoom call with people because they were based in the US, and I didn't want to do a phone call on my mobile. But I'd use Zoom, and I'd use GoToMeeting and all these things, but I'd never thought of doing an event online.
Yeah. Welcome to our
and also,
world.
you just sit here and we're just chatting away, and there's 15 other people in the room, and we don't even know they're there. It's
exactly.
Great. But we do know you're there. So hi, thanks very much for coming.
So yeah, that's really true. So well, I think in the end we can't find an answer. Will people still do these online events if they can meet live again? I mean, of course, there's a social factor in it as well. I mean, it's always nice to meet people, to have a kind of a private chat, to really get together with them. But I think maybe you have another opinion. I think online events will still stay after this.
I think there are some. I honestly, I think there are some. I mean, I do think that journalists, particularly who are really time sensitive. I mean, majority of events with journalists tend to be in the evenings, because during the day that you just can't get them. You know, if you can't take a journalist out for lunch, for example, is, you know, 10, 12 years ago, you possibly could have. Now they just can't do it. They haven't got the time. So you have to put things on in the evening, which then kind of cuts into people's time at home with their families or whatever. So if people start to react to this and say, you know, we had a few weeks of just doing online calls and getting the answers we needed from that, and can you do that in the future? Maybe. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I mean, as soon as we can start organizing events again and someone says to me, will you run this event for me, we'll see, and we'll see whether there's been any change. I don't know. I mean, there's certain things obviously that won't change. Awards events won't change. I don't know what's going to happen with big things like World Travel Market. I really don't know. I mean, certainly for this year, it's going to be very difficult to put events on, I would think.
Yeah. I believe just an information maybe regarding, as you said, the big trade fairs, for example. This is what we are at the moment implementing, having a real kind of a trade fair, but virtual one.
Yeah, well, someone's already done it. Someone's already done it. There's a company in Israel, actually, that has already done it. They did a 2-day conference last week.
I know. I've seen it. I was attending.
Oh, you were there?
I've seen it.
Yeah. Great idea.
We were
really
good
idea. And there are other people. I mean, like TTG have been doing a conference every couple of weeks, which has been great. And it's very simple. I mean, they just record some videos of people, then do a Q&A with them live. It's very simple, very clever. So there are some people who are really adapting to doing things online.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're getting some great success out of it. And maybe it's the future. Who
as
knows?
I said,
maybe.
You are invited, of course, as well as all our members as well to our virtual trade fair. So keep an eye on the news feed on BUZZtravel and on our social media, and you will get to know everything about it. So, but let's now get back to the online events. There are, of course, different possibilities, formats to run these online events. What do you think is the best to do?
There is no best. You literally just have to decide whether what you want the event to do. So what is the message that you want to get out there, and who do you want to get that message out to? Once you've formulated that, all you need to work out is how you're going to get out there. So I'll give you an example. I had a phone call from somebody yesterday who actually I did some work for 2 years ago. He runs a company that does bus tours around London of 60s music experiences. Okay, and he takes people past sites that they would have been famous in the 60s, certain clubs, etc., blah blah blah, links to the Beatles, links to the Rolling Stones, all these things. Now obviously he can't do any of that at the moment, so what he's doing now is he's doing virtual tours of going around London, and people then are dialing in. Now, the reason why that is going to work so well is because his target audience is people who were in the 60s, who were there. And all those people are in their 70s now. And I don't know where about everywhere else in the world, but in the UK, anyone who's over 70 has been told to stay at home and don't leave the house. So they need to find things to do. So if you can spend an hour on a Zoom call, because they've all worked out how to use Zoom, all of them, amazing. And they can spend an hour reminiscing about music that they grew up with 60 years ago. And they go on this bus tour around London, and they don't actually need to leave their house. So they don't have to worry about getting on the tube. They don't have to worry about getting on a bus with lots of other people. They're literally sitting at home, experiencing exactly the same thing with all this great music that they remember from 60 years ago. And I said to him, I said, why did it take you so long to put this together? You could have done it 6 weeks ago and it would have been huge. And he literally just called me yesterday and said, do you think it's a good idea? And I was like, yeah, it's a brilliant idea. Get out there and do it immediately. And all I said to him was, you've got to find your right audience. And the best way to find that audience is probably by getting somebody who really knows how to find them through social media. So there are some brilliant people out there who can really drill down in Facebook to get to the exact people you're looking for. I know one who can do it. So if anybody's looking, then I'll give you his details. And he can literally just go straight there and say, join us on this. I've got another one who they do these tours of country houses, things like Kensington Palace, Windsor Castle, things like that.
Uh-huh.
And it's all really posh stuff, and it's not a cheap tour, but you do some really cool British things of, you know, like not hunting, but, you know,
Yeah.
tea and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they
Interesting.
put on this daily update from all of their places they do. So Highclere Castle, which is Downton Abbey, Kensington Palace, Windsor Castle, all these things that they normally do. And they're just doing virtual tours of them every day. And they're calling it tea and training. Now, obviously, they don't give you the tea. You have to provide the tea yourself. But you literally, they say, right, make your cup of tea. We'll join you back here in 5 minutes. And then they give you a talk about the venue.
Great.
And there's some brilliant stuff. And the barman, who I mentioned earlier, who I can't mention by name, he actually did a call last week, but with a gin distillery here in the UK. And the gin distillery put a message to all the people who registered in advance and said, we're going to be doing a workshop using our gin, and said barman is going to be doing some cocktails. If you would like to purchase the gin in advance, please let us know by 3 days before, so that we can get the bottle to you, so you know that you can make the cocktails. Something like 50 people.
Great.
50 people ordered that gin in advance because they wanted to be on the call and they wanted to learn what to do.
Yeah.
So if you can decide what you want to do and have a really good focus on what it is and how you're going to do it and who your audience is, it's really important to know who your audience is, because if you don't know who your audience is, you don't know where to find them. So, I mean, if I take this right back to social media, I knew exactly who my audience were. They were people who were doing PR in the travel industry, whether that's in a PR company or working for a company or a destination, attraction, whatever. Anybody who wanted to engage with travel journalists and still promote their product, I knew was the audience of social media. Now, I happen just to have a huge list of those people because I've been working with them for 17 years. And so I knew my audience was, and I had an idea of what I wanted the event to be and how I wanted it to be delivered. And I knew that I could get the journalists to do it because I'd proven in the first 2 events that I had 9 very good journalists on the calls. So, and it's just steadily progressed from there and there. And the journalists are now coming back to me and saying, when can I do it again? I've even had one journalist today said, please tell me when they are so that I can be in the audience and listen to other people. So, you know, if you know who your audience is and you know what the event is and how it's pieced together, just throw it out there, basically. That's all I can say to people at the moment is, you know, if you've got an idea, just go with it, you know, and some work and some don't. I sat on one the other day with a major destination. They had 4 or 5 members of their staff. I'm not going to say which destination it was, and it was literally just these 5 people who were saying what their favorite memories were of that country, which on the surface seems like a really good idea, because it's, instead of saying, you know, this is a tour of our country, it's saying, this is the bit I like, this is the bit I like, this is the bit I like, which fine. It was just, it didn't give me enough. It didn't really, you know, because I've been to that country and I've got different memories of it. And I kind of wanted them to say, okay, who wants to give their own memory of it? But they didn't do that. So they didn't necessarily engage with their audience so much. Maybe they're going to follow up with that. I don't know. Maybe they've got a plan of a series of events. I'm not organising them for them, so I can't say. But the thing, all you have to do with an event is have an idea, think whether it really will be that interesting, and you won't really know whether it's that interesting until you put it out there and get an audience or not. If you get an audience, do it again. Do it again. Because, you know, if it's worked, why stop? Keep going, you know, until people say, right, please stop. We've had enough of that. We're moving on to something else. Just keep doing it. And, you know, and someone said to me yesterday, said, if you've got an idea, then just go with it at the moment, because what we've got to lose.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I would just like to mention, guys, you are watching us. Do you have any questions? Don't hesitate. Post them in the Q&A section down there, or raise your hand, and we let you talk here together with us to ask you questions right away or discuss with us. It's all up to you. Yeah, feel free. We're looking forward to that. And in the end, Howard, I think what you mentioned there, what is the target group is a very, very important thing. I mean, okay, you have to first have the idea what you want to do, but a target group, of course, is about how I talk to people, how do I reach the people. I think it's what is their interest. I think that's the most important things that you can do. Absolutely, yep. I'm absolutely with you. So it seems you have been, well, in the end, told everybody what they needed to know, what they wanted to know. There's a question. You see, from Joe Fletcher Cross. Interesting regarding destination event with memories not really working. Are there any formats you think work particularly well, or ones which kill an event?
Right. Are there any formats that I think work particularly well? I just think that the people that are presenting have to have a little bit of charisma, and they have to try and engage with the audience. You've got to, I mean, if you've not run one of these Zoom events before, you don't realize that you're kind of sitting in the middle of quite a lot going on. It's not like when you're in a room and you spend most of the time when speakers are standing on stage trying to deliver their speech and you go, shh, everyone please be quiet, listen to the speaker, whatever, because you can't hear if there's any noise. So you're sitting here, trying to see if anybody wants to engage with the people who are talking, because they're kind of seen as experts. I don't consider myself to be an expert, but in these instances, I'm the person who's delivering my opinion, so therefore I am some kind of expert. But then on the right hand side, we've got all the people who are in the room, and you're trying to see who's there and thinking, right, how can I bring them into the conversation? And but what do I think works really well? I think interesting subjects and interesting people. Not saying that the people who delivered that particular event that I didn't like, because that's only my opinion. There were lots of people on that call, and some of them probably thought, oh, that's great, because I've been to that part of that country and I remember that, and that's brilliant, and that's really made my day because they talked about a place that I really liked. And that happens. And it's all about giving people inspiration and giving people memories. And it just so happens that I just didn't like that event. I didn't like the fact that they didn't open it up to people to give their own opinion. I don't remember they asked people in advance whether there's anything that they wanted to say, because actually what they could have done is they could have had a first-hand account of somebody in the audience saying, I went to that destination, I had the most fantastic time, and here's why. And I think that is probably more valuable than the people who are promoting it 100% of the time, actually. So what I've tried to do with social media is not just have the journalist talking, which is an important part of the event, but I also shut it down before the end and try and get somebody else to speak. And some of the people that I've had, right at the beginning, I had two people who were in Italy at the height of their big peak of their virus, the crisis there. And we heard from two of them, and it was really good actually, because they were saying it's not as bad as you're being told. And that was really important for us to know at the time.
Oh, really?
We then followed that up on the next event with someone from Greece and someone from France who gave an update on what's happening in their country. We then had other things that happened. So like we had an update on what Irish media are looking for from an Irish PR company. I had Simon Press from World Travel Market giving an update on what the plans are for World Travel Market as well, because Excel has been turned into a hospital. So at the moment, we don't really know what's going to happen with the building. Of course, he came on and said, everything is going ahead as planned, which there's no reason for it not to at the moment, of course. And this week, not only have we got 3 really good journalists coming on the call, but we're also having an update from somebody who's writing a big article about the future of travel, which is obviously really important for everyone. It's her opinion, but she's got a lot of people who are getting involved in this. She's coming on to my call on Thursday because she wants to talk to people about it and tell them how they can get involved and get their companies mentioned, basically, of what their companies are doing in terms of the future of travel. So things that we're coming back to the question of what do I think works well. I think engaging with the audience, because if someone's come there, most of them, it's the same with any event. I mean, everybody wants to come along because there's something that gets them there. But while they're there, that you have to engage with them somehow. I mean, if you're running a normal event and you're doing a travel agent's roadshow or something, which is happens a lot. And people say to me, oh, what can I do to make sure they come? And they go, well, come up with something different. Yes, they'll come for a drink. Yes, they'll come because you're going to give them a nice goodie bag with some good stuff. But what can you do? Maybe a treasure hunt or something at your event, or virtual reality goggles, which has kind of been done to death now. But, something like that, where you say, come along, you're going to be able to engage with us, talk to us about our destination, you're going to experience the destination, which is something you obviously can't do. But if you can find a way of doing it. So doing it online is exactly the same, giving people some value for why they've given up their time to come along. That's really what it's all about. And I now can't remember what the rest of the question was.
Well, let me see here. Is there any formats that can particularly kill an event?
Haven't experienced that yet, thank God. I did have one journalist who came on my call who we really struggled to get him connected. And I knew that he was the one journalist that people had really come along to listen to. So I did panic for about 20 minutes. It wouldn't have killed the event as such, but if the person that people have come along to see, they can't hear from, then that's quite a big problem.
Of course.
Is there anything that kills an event? I don't know. Swearing at a child who walks into the room while you're doing it. It's,
that's true.
It's likely to cause a bit of a stir, I suppose. But luckily, it hasn't happened to me. It's just my otter, and he just sits there quietly every time. So he just listens.
Perfect. Yeah. There seem to be no other questions so far.
Good.
You explained everything really well. I think this.
Well, those who are in the room, there's a link to where you can get tickets for Social with Media. It happens every Thursday at 1:00. The venue is always the same place. It's my living room here.
So everyone's invited to join you.
And this week we've got the travel editor of the iPaper, the editor of a gay publication Out There, and the CEO of TTG, Daniel Pearce, who most people in the UK know. And as I said, we're doing this report on this. We call it a white paper because I don't really know whether it's an article or whatever. Until I have the event, I don't really know. So that's this week's event. And then next week, we've got an Irish journalist and we've got other things going on. And we're also doing an event with the British School of Travel Writers so that freelance journalists can have something too. And as I said, people have started coming to me and saying, look, you know how to do this stuff. Can you help us promote a destination? And the answer is absolutely yes, basically. Great.
That's really great. Well, Howard, thank you for all this information. I think when anybody would like to know more about or get in contact with you, two possibilities. Contact Howard directly, for example, on BUZZtravel, or send us a message. We will forward that one, of course. So we are always happy to connect people. That's our job. That's what
we do too.
Our daily
work. People too.
Exactly, and that's what it's like. Yeah, we all need to support each other, help each other, and bring valuable information.
Yep.
So. Thanks a lot, Howard, for your time, for talking to us and giving all this information. Looking forward to talking to you soon again.
Yeah.
And, I wish you best of luck for the event. I think it's the day after tomorrow, right?
It is 2 days time. Yeah, the next one. And then
perfect.
2 next week.
I'm sure this will be very interesting. Perfect.
I hope so. Marcus, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Have a great day and stay safe.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.